We'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Polly.
Present.
Trustee Lappin.
Here.
Clerk Palovich here. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Here.
Trustee Crawl.
Here.
Trustee Reiner.
Here.
Supervisor Skibby.
Here. Moving forward to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, or substitutions to the agenda as presented? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to approve the agenda. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Moving forward to public comment. This is the first opportunity for public comment. If there's any public comment online, please use the bottom taskbar to either raise your hand or send a message so that we can address you. Again, this is the first opportunity for public comment. If there's any public comment online, please use the bottom taskbar to raise your hand or send a message. Seeing none, we'll move forward to the payment of the bills. Is there a motion on the table to make payment of bills?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to make payment of the bills. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Oh, Norm, could you please turn on your mic as well? We have a motion and support on the table.
Who made support?
Trustee Lappin. That's refreshing. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Crawl.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to the correspondence, there is a 2021 annual spillway gate operation certification through the, oh yes, I do apologize. Thank you for the correction. The minutes of December 27th, 2021, a regularly scheduled meeting. Do we have a motion on the table to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make that. Oh, go ahead.
So who made the motion?
I'll make a
I
motion.
support.
And support by trustee Reiner. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of December 27th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. And now moving forward to the correspondence. It was from FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, in regards to their 2021 annual spillway certification that has impact within the township on the Thunder Bay River. I'll entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion on the table to receive and file. Is there support?
I'll support that.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of receiving and filing correspondence signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose the same. Correspondence has been received and filed. Old business, Brownfield Authority quotes for services. We also have Mac McClellan online. If you could unmute him as well. We have old business. We had two different quotes for services regarding Brownfield. It would be my recommendation out of the two that were presented to utilize Mac McClellan and Mac Consulting Services LLC moving forward. Are there any questions for Mac before we actually look at this business item? Because it is my recommendation to move forward with Mac Consulting Services. Trustee Lappin.
I just have two issues that I'd like to just understand better. On page 3 of the proposal, under the highlighted section of subject property, it says the Charter Township of Alpena is not qualified local, the Charter Township of Alpena is not a qualified local government, and therefore the site preparation and infrastructure are not brownfield eligible activities for such a project in the township. So my question is, do we have any unforeseen expenses associated with this from any previous conversation? Because I don't believe we talked about this.
The quick answer is no. That is a stipulation of the State Brownfield Act that provides certain opportunities for core communities, selected core communities, including the city of Alpena, but townships are not typically listed as core communities. But those were not included in any thoughts or concepts or approvals that have been made to date. And so there are no unanticipated expenses from previous conversations, if I understand your question correctly.
All right, thank you. Then the next question that I have, and this is just one that sort of popped off the page a little bit. I gotta find it. On page, well, doesn't have a page. It is item number 9. No, excuse me, item number 10, limitation of liability. Essentially, what it says is that if in the event that MAC Consulting errors, that its maximum exposure is that to its limit of liability. Is there a reason why we limit the liability? I mean, I can appreciate why you want to do it, but is there a reason why we want to do it?
Limited edition.
Don't we normally
coverage.
request $1 million liability from subcontractors?
Yeah, I don't know what the limits are. I assume you carry $1 million limits.
Yes, $1 million per occurrence and $2 million total.
And so if we have an issue where there's a $2 million loss, then you pick up the first million and we pick up the second?
Well, no, it's per 1 million per occurrence. So yes, if there's over $1 million, then yes. I will say in 27 years of doing this, I've never had a claim. Never even had any kind of consideration of a claim against that. The liability to the township is relatively small for my services. I'm not conducting environmental services, for example, where there might be a large, Superfund claim. To that extent, these are professional services of advice, much like a planner, frankly, and I'm positioning the projects in the township for incentives. And so the claims would not likely be even close. If they are, and like I said, I've been working for 27 years and never even had a suggestion of a claim.
And then I guess my final question is relative to, I guess it would be to the site itself. We talked earlier about us not being eligible for this, what you just spoke about. And if we don't create or have any kind of a potential pollution exposure.
No, there is a specific development and reimbursement agreement, which defends or where the developer would hold harmless and defend the township and the Brownfield Authority from any claims in that nature. You're not conducting any of the activities. All of the activities are conducted under contract by the environmental consultant or the contractor to the developer. So there is an engagement. Essentially, the township is working as a financier in this and approving future tax revenues to be able to pay off eligible activities. So there is no direct contract relationship to the environmental work that's being done on the site. And there is an agreement between the township, Brownfield Authority, and the developer to hold and defend, hold harmless and defend the township and Brownfield Authority in such a case.
So we are essentially acting as a fiduciary.
That's correct. As a bank for basically, you're collecting future revenues and reimbursing costs.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Mac in regards to this?
The only other question I had was whether we have to, how much do we have to front load? Anything?
No, and I'll leave this to you to answer as well.
Okay, we have arrangements, and I've done this in a number of Brownfield authorities which I represent, is to have the developers pay the upfront cost for a project to come into the door. And they pay all of my fees through the Township Brownfield Authority. They make a deposit, which has been the case for the proposed project, the Alpena Retail North project. They make a deposit to the township. for my fees. I bill those on an hourly basis based on the work that I do, submit those fees to the township, and the township draws from that retainer essentially that the developer has provided. So there have not been any upfront fees by the township or the Brownfield Authority.
Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to this first item of old business? As I stated earlier, it was still my recommendation to move forward with procuring MAC Consulting Services LLC for brownfield redevelopment.
So we did do this before. I thought we had done this, but okay.
Well, we tabled
What's
it.
the nature of the motion you need?
It was tabled.
Well, that was last meeting, but I'm talking about
To
something
approve the
prior to that.
recommendation of MAC Consulting LLC to conduct administrative function for the brownfield
Because
redevelopment.
we've had Mac here 2 or 3 times and I thought we'd taken care of that. So. okay.
No, it got tabled. And so, and then I was
Last
at
meeting it
the
did.
last
Yeah,
meeting.
okay.
So,
All right,
and here I am.
I make that motion.
We have a motion on the table.
Support.
And support by trustee Paul. Further discussion. Roll call.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. And you're still on the docket, Mac, as to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority appointment of executive director. I think, did you have a question for Mac in regards to that?
Yeah, I don't know that it's, I don't know the protocol of this, so if we have hired you as the consultant and then to hire you or appoint you as the executive director, does that create any kind of a conflict of interest, or is this just a normal process?
No, that's a good point. In some cases, I will work as the consultant and a staff person from the municipality will be appointed as the executive director. In other cases, I'll be appointed as the executive director and fulfill all of those kind of same consulting services. So it's kind of a joint appointment between the two, still representing the township and the Brownfield Authority in both cases. It's just the role that I fill depending on the situation of the municipality.
And
So I'm
you've done this in other municipalities?
Yes. Got to
Has
serve
there-
as executive director.
Would the executive director ever come back and make recommendation that the consultant needs to do this, that, and the other thing for an additional fee?
Hey, that's a good idea. actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, hadn't thought of that before, but yeah. No, I mean, essentially, I'm fulfilling that role, both as a consultant and the executive director. It merges those two roles in essence.
All right,
And I would fulfill all the consulting services under the guise of the executive director.
all right, thank you.
Probably wouldn't recommend to fire the consultant either.
And so this was actually an appointment and a recommendation of an appointment from the Brownfield Redevelopment Board. So there is a recommendation from the Brownfield Redevelopment Board to appoint Mac as the executive director of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
So this was their idea. They didn't want it to. be
We
among-
had
from
open
among them.
conversation. We're in such a beginning and infancy process. Why in our infancy wouldn't we lean on, for example, and Laura was present at the meeting, to utilize Mac as the executive role for the first few years to get more institutional knowledge, and then also 2 parts to utilize Mike Mahler as the chair because of his years of experience on the city's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and pull as much institutional knowledge from both of those actors in our beginning phases. So, yes, it was a recommendation from that board to make those appointments.
I'll make a motion. We appoint Mac McClelland as the executive director for the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
We have a motion on the table to appoint Mac McClellan as the executive director.
Can you get batteries for Nathan, please?
We have a motion on the table to make Mac McClellan the executive director based upon the appointment recommendations of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Is there support?
I'll support that.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
I just want to understand the fee. Explain the $125 per hour.
120.
120.
Yeah, I keep track of my time and provide that as part of the services bill at $120 per hour. And so each of the invoices will have a detailed sheet of all the activities that I conducted on behalf of the authority.
And that's recoverable through the funds?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay,
Good timing.
impeccable. Are there any other questions while we have Mr. McClellan online? And just a quick synopsis of the current status where we're at. We have submitted the $1 million grant. I know that I submitted a press release to Ms. Lowell with Eagle. That was one of the last kind of moving targets on the grant process. And you have started the brownfield plan and looking into that as well, sir. Anything else
Yeah.
that you would like to add to for the boards?
No, just as an update, it appears that the $1 million grant is secured. There are some processes to go through for final approvals at the state. And we should have that grant contract sometime in February and be able to begin work on that. There's a series of complex administrative activities that have to happen. Work plans have to be developed for all of the activities. And so we'll be going through that process to begin and conduct the environmental activities and demolition once the project is moving forward. There are also other costs that were not included within the brownfield grant that will be coming back in a brownfield plan. So the grant will be able to provide reimbursement for a number of upfront costs. There are other costs that will be expensed by the developer and then captured over time. That brownfield plan through increased taxes generated by the project. That brownfield plan will be coming to the board probably in February. So it'll be one of your first brownfield plan to be considered. The brownfield plan has to be approved by the Brownfield Authority as well as the governing body, the Township Board, with the public hearing as well. So that's going to come through. The great part about this project is that there aren't many expenses that will need to be covered underneath the brownfield plan, and provides an opportunity to fund a local brownfield revolving fund that can help other projects within the community. So it's a pretty ideal situation, frankly, to have a big Eagle grant to help fund a majority of the tasks, and then still have a brownfield plan to cover some additional costs and administrative and operating costs of the authority as well.
It is. It's more than ideal. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Mr. McClellan while we have him? Seeing none, Mr. McClellan, thank you very much for your participation. I hope you have a wonderful new year and I'll be in touch.
Did we
My
vote?
pleasure. Thank you very much. Looking forward to working with everybody.
Yeah, so,
Good to be working with you.
so with that being said, roll call on the motion on the table for executive director appointment.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
And at this point in time, the next item of business are the federal poverty guidelines used to make the determination of poverty exemptions for the fiscal year 2022. Mr. Lewis, would you please stand to the podium and help clarify the process for the board?
Okay, every year, the board has to adopt the guidelines are used to, and typically it's the federal poverty guidelines that are issued by the state of Michigan. And they have to adopt it through resolution each year, and it's something that the clerk would have to sign. And as a board. That's a one for you to,
Are there, because this was obviously tabled from the last, so what were the questions in regards to the process therein?
Well, I've only been here, if I may,
Yes.
I've only been here for one round of this, but as I recall, it was somewhat pro forma, but I think we just didn't know what the impact of this was on us. So tell us if you can just explain to us, how does this?
the
So
po-
we have to pass a resolution, but what does that mean? What does that do?
that each year, the state tax commission states that each jurisdiction would have to adopt guidelines as far as granting or denying poverty. And those guidelines are set for income by the federal poverty guidelines. You can go below, set the guidelines below the federal poverty guidelines and adopt that. But you cannot go over those guidelines. So each year, of course, the guidelines change. And it's based on number of occupants in the home. As far as the amount of income that they can.
Do you see any reason for us in this community to deviate from them based on anything you know?
No. I wish they would set it a little bit higher, but they don't. Because that's kind of tough for one person. $12,000 a year. But those are guidelines that we have to follow.
Are there any other questions for our assessing? Otherwise, we need to vote on yes.
I'll make the motion to accept the federal poverty guidelines as presented.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Lewis? Yeah.
You want me to give you my report now?
No, we'll stay with the schedule at hand. Thank you very much. We have a motion and support on the table. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward into. Little kick drum, to keep the meeting going on beat. Moving forward to new items of business is budget adjustments. A little bit.
Do you want me to
If you want to take point, actually, Ms. Nguyen, by law, that has to remain open. Unfortunately, but I do appreciate your attentiveness.
The first 3 pages are just our normal budget adjustments. The last 2 pages, it says start of accounts conversion corrections. When we completed our start of accounts conversion on the Medicare and the pension for John Hancock, it did not move over the amount that we had already budgeted to the new line. So this basically just takes the balance that was in the old GL and moves it to the new GL to get it correct.
So as she stated, the vast majority are just corrections to the process of the chart of accounts conversion, of which I was questioned of why I didn't fund things. I pled ignorance. And then we also have just a small handful of traditional adjustments. If I will entertain a motion to move forward with the budget adjustments as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to move forward with the budget adjustments as presented. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, trustee.
So we're freezing the Thunder Bay Junior High Liaison Officer general fund contribution that where we've expended now, and we may have covered this at a prior meeting. Why is that? I guess.
Because we don't have any more expenditures till April 1st, which will be in our new fiscal year. And we went from us and the county sharing the cost
So
to
that's
now
why-
us, the school and the county.
And that happened in this fiscal
And
year.
it happened this fiscal year, so we had more budgeted in that line than we needed.
Okay,
It's actually back to the way that the program originally started.
Right.
with, Cost share of a third.
I'm very aware of that.
Are there any other questions?
No, but I will say I appreciate the moving to get the school to pay for part of their own officer. So
Under Sheriff Smith, it worked extremely diligently, and it's nice to have partnerships.
yes, indeed.
With that being said, if there's no other discussion, roll call, please.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward on the agenda to Planning Commission appointment. It would be a position that would be my recommendation to make the appointment to Delynn Pauley for an open seat on the Planning Commission and that'd be a 3-year appointment. And I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to make the appointment to Delynn Pauley for the Planning Commission, 3-year term. Is there support?
Yes.
And it's been supported. Further discussion? Yes, Michelle.
This is our building official's wife.
That's
That
what
is
I
correct.
wondered. Yeah.
Does not the building official have some influence or is consulted by the planning commission? I'm just wondering if there's a conflict of interest or. I mean, I
I'll
know
leave it to Tim.
they're
because-
not
No, the
supervising.
ZBA,
but-
that would be definitely a conflict. Planning Commission, I don't, it shouldn't be an antagonistic relationship at all. He would just be informational. He's-
Because the zoning would set the precedent. He wouldn't have any
Planning-
flexibility outside of. Because
Planning
of-
Commission is dealing with special use permits, site plan approval.
Subject to board approval, all right?
Sure,
Yeah.
zoning, not special use permits,
Oh,
site
okay,
plan. Zoning amendments. Doesn't deal with enforcement, doesn't deal with building permit issuance, doesn't deal with zoning permit issuance. The planning.
But I
commission
thought
doesn't.
our building official is working to take over some of the zoning.
Zoning enforcement.
So there's no conflict there with him being the zoning
Zoning Board of
enforcing
Appeals.
and his wife being on the planning commission. And I mean, I just feel like it's a little murky water we might be getting into.
I don't see I can appreciate the consideration. I had the same conversation with Mr. Pauley and Mrs. Pauley. And then I looked at the contract with Mr. Pauley. And it's fairly well stated. I'm still been providing the majority of all the zoning administrative work. And even at best, the planning commission is the catch-all basin. And it would be a board approved position at that. So I personally don't.
I don't either. The planning commission isn't approving or disapproving anything that Kevin would do. We don't have any authority to do that. The ZBA, on the other hand, can reverse something that the building official does. Or
But-
zoning administrator.
But Kevin still has involvement in the ZBA.
But she's not on the.
She's
ZBA.
not on.
No,
the
I
ZBA,
understand, but he is.
But we're talking about the planning commission.
Right, but planning commission and zoning kind of, ZBA kind of work hand in hand.
No,
For some
they do,
things.
they operate under the guise of ordinance 142 in interpretation, but the ZBA is a self-sustaining separate legal entity that has, as Mr. Golden stated, the ability to reverse decisions. So I don't want to make it any murkier. ZBA is its own. She has no influence of the ZBA. She's going to be appointed to the planning commission.
No, we
But-
do have a planning commission member on the ZBA, right? But that.
We have a
but that's-
liaison, the chair, yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Hilberg. is
yeah,
the-
Tom. Well,
yeah.
he's the chair of planning, yeah, not chair of ZBA.
No,
So, Norm, I guess I would ask you, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, you're on the planning commission as our liaison. Do you see any issues there?
No, I don't. I look at this appointment, knowing the lady, I think she would be a true benefit to the planning commission with her knowledge and the way she goes about things. I don't see any problem with it. It was brought up to me even by my wife. I says, no, I don't see any issue there. Not at this point.
so are there any other discussion?
No, is the building official, I've only had what, maybe 4, but zoning board of appeals meetings since I've been on, but is the building official a member or is he just, we just get information from him
Yeah,
primarily?
it'd be the same as my involvement as a zoning administrator to a ZBA case,
Yeah, so,
And at this point, he's still a subcontractor.
and he's still a subcontractor.
But isn't the goal to eventually have Mr. Polly take over the zoning administration? Isn't that the goal?
That is, I mean, yeah, that may be the end goal as it comes into this year. I don't think that's gonna come to fruition. But that could be a conversation downstream there again. Even as zoning administrator, it would be, I'm finding it hard pressed to find a conflict when it's purely the interpretation of our already existing legal document being ordinance 142. And if there's any variance to that, or I should, or adjective, because it's not a variance. A variance is go to ZBA. If it's a special use, it's still a board voted upon process.
Special uses aren't, I thought the planning commission.
And a zoning administrator doesn't have any authority over a special use. It's either one that the planning commission should grant or they shouldn't grant. The person's spouse is an independent person. Just because they're married doesn't mean that they're locked together as far as roles. If it involved their real estate, something financial, then of course it'd be a conflict, but there are other husband and wife situations in municipalities where they're independent people. Just because they're married doesn't mean that, well, she's gonna side with him and vice versa. We don't presume that.
Well, we have had some,
Yeah, and then
Instances in the
those were
past.
lessons learned.
right,
And this, even with those lessons that have been learned, didn't have the same taste in my mouth as what we walked away.
Oh,
from
I'm
our
not-
past.
not saying it
Um,
does, but we have.
So,
had it in
well,
the
we can leave
past.
it at that. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, roll call, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes,
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes,
Clerk Palovich, no. Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward in the agenda is the request to reinstate the cadet program. I believe you have it in your handout. The recommendation from our chief. Anything to add to the recommendation to starting this up?
Good morning, everyone. Mark Hanson, Fire Chief. What we've done is we've worked with our insurance risk officer. We have boilerplate language from Michigan Township Association on starting such program back up again. He sent me the whole entire package. I'm going to have Jim Bolanowski is going to be my lead on that cadet program. He was a cadet, currently now an employee. I think the system works pretty good. We're going to be looking at doing different outside functions like career days and different things like that. We've got something planned on the horizon here very shortly to go to the Aplex with the high school. They're going to have career opportunities there. We're going to try and promote our department, get some youngsters involved. We're looking at a number of no more than 5 for the cadet program. Just for, that's an easy number to handle. And, you know, getting that re-exposed and getting those folks on board with us early on, getting them excited about becoming a firefighter, EMT, whatever it is we're going to do with them. I think it's a win-win program, and I think we've got sound language from our insurance risk officer to initiate that program and get it started.
Okay, we have a recommendation of Fire Chief Hansen to reinstate the cadet trainee program. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
Just budget, just what's your budget to plan for this?
So basically, the cadet program would involve no pay for those individuals. And as far as having the old gear, we have plenty of old gear that we can put them in. That doesn't have to be qualified gear to be on a scene. They're not in the hot zone. They're just there to help out, rolling hoses, helping around the station. You just try to give them the taste of, you know.
So you'd actually put them in turnout gear?
Yeah, yes. And we have that from previous, the previous program. So there wouldn't be any initial cost to us to get that back up and running.
Would there be t-shirts and hats and things like that that you'd buy for them?
Only if they
promote
want
the
to buy them,
program?
because we buy our own right now.
Okay,
So-
all right.
So will there be a cost to go to the schools and recruit, would we be paying an employee to do that? Will there be some,
Yeah, so
so there is some kind of,
in this particular instance, this career day that we're gonna have, Jimmy's actually on shift at that time. I'm on shift. We plan on attending that. We'll just have an engine right down at the Aplex. We can respond from there if we need to disappear for a call or whatever. But that's the initial plan, is that these things will be done on his shift, so it won't incur any more expense to the township. And that's how I'm hoping that it all runs, that we do it while we're on shift. And, you know, if he's going to do a training for cadets, they'll do it on his shift, or meeting with the cadets, he'll do it on his shift, but he's willing to take on that program for me. And I think it's a good thing.
What are the ages? What's a typical age of a cadet?
16 to 18.
Okay.
Roughly, once they hit that 18 mark, you're pretty much an adult, and we can look at them down the road for potential trainee for the full-time, paid on call, not full-time, paid on call position, if they meet the mark at that point.
So when you get called out, I wonder, and you're in the middle of a training and you get called out, you just say, we'll see you guys, or guys, gals, whatever.
Oh, you mean at the Aplex?
Aplex here, where?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've ever been to the career days, but we'll have a table set up. We'll have our information. We'll have applications for anybody that's interested. But if we get a run, we're going. That's our primary duty. So our table will lay vacant, or I will stay behind and the guys will take care of it, and I'll answer questions and try to keep the program running. But that's the initial plan right now. We're kind of limited, so we're going to try and do it while we're on shift, and no extra expenses.
Is there a set curriculum, classroom type of curriculum, or is it all just a job following?
There is several different things that Michigan Township recommends through their cadet program, and all the language. They have a training schedule that you can put these folks on for an interim. Keep them organized and have a structured a learning process for them. But yeah, we're going to follow that program from Michigan Township probably to the T. Nearest I can read it, it all looks good. Mr. Polly?
Does our insurance cover, since they're not an employee or just a training, do we have something in there that covers that?
According to the insurance risk, I believe it is covered.
No issue.
No issue.
These are great training grounds. These are wonderful for enticing people to be more community involved. I think this is a great idea. You can also look into, if you want additional sort of knowledge, although they don't call it a cadet program, I think the Boy Scouts of America, or whatever they're referred to now, have a similar type of program. The guy in Auburn, Michigan, outside of Midland, that may be helpful to you, and maybe the risk control officer may know that person, but I think these are great, and we should do this. And I don't know if it's worthwhile trying to bring other municipalities into it, other outlying fire stations or not, to defray the costs if
And
necessary.
that's certainly something we can look at down the road, but to get initial started, I'll certainly get with Mr. Gombos and see what he has to recommend. If he has any other ideas, he's been most helpful to us so far. So.
Excellent.
We have a motion and support on the table. Any other discussion or questions in regards to reinstating the cadet program? If not, roll call please.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to the recommendation of cadet trainee.
Okay. I believe that's going to be, it should actually say just trainee, not cadet. He's William Brusso is the person you're referencing here on the agenda. He's applied for a trainee position with the township. I will say in past experience, I've had Mr. Brusso as a Michigan wildland firefighter for me when I worked in a different career. Very active for me in that organization. He's already very active trying to help out wherever he can here. He's been coming to trainings already. I would like to recommend that we put Mr. Brusso on. He's wants to take the first opportunity he can to get into the EMT class this winter. If it, when it gets taken into effect, he's going to enroll in that. And then the first opportunity that he gets for a firefighter academy, he's willing to go for that for us as well. So it's my recommendation that we had put Mr. Brusso on as a trainee at this point in time. Pleasure of the board.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to appoint
I'll support.
and support to move forward with procuring trainee Brusso. Any further discussion? Yes,
Is
Laura.
that contingent on a background check, drug screening and agility test?
Yeah, he'll
Yeah.
have to. do it.
I've already got him scheduled for agility test if he was board approved today. We're having one on the 17th. For the new hires that are coming on and the other individuals that I'm speaking with of today.
So we have a motion and support. Is there further discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to the next item of business is a paid on call hire firefighter MFR.
Yes, Mr. Jim Stackowitz, he's a firefighter paramedic, instructor coordinator, fire instructor 1 and a CPR instructor. He was formerly on the City of Alpena Fire Department, retired from there. He has applied to us to be a paid on call firefighter. And with Jim's knowledge and experience, I think he would be a welcome addition to help us out. Right now, we need boots on the ground, and I do believe that he would be a definite asset to help us out. So it's my recommendation that we put Mr. Stackwitz on as a paid on call member of this department. And it's a pleasure of the board.
We have a recommendation from Fire Chief to appoint Jim Stackwitz to the paid on call roster. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
Support.
And that's also contingent upon the drug
And
screening.
then
and-
hiring,
Absolutely.
not appointing.
My apologies.
No, just for clarification. Background check, drugs.
So we have a motion and support. Any other discussion?
Motion was made by Trustee Kroll.
Yes. Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward, thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you for your time.
Moving forward to new business item 6, the asset inventory charts. Ms. Nguyen, would you like to, or any of the members of the F&B family that are present with us?
Oh, my God. Feel like I'm trying to evaluate a stock.
Thank you for having us. I'm Brian Rowley. I'm the regional manager for F&V out of the Traverse City office. And we assisted Kath here with putting together some, taking some information provided and just putting it in a little bit more of a organized format. And so just wanted to introduce myself and describe the fact that we have operations here. We provide full service civil engineering, environmental, structural, survey, professional services out of the Traverse City office, and that's how we would serve the Charter Township of Alpena as needed.
So the goal of the asset inventory was to address one of the deficiencies that were noted in previous audit reports. So the methodology for doing this, so that, there wasn't a significant upfront cost or having to put a lot of field time in to do this, was to go through all the existing townships records in order to compile this asset inventory, which had to do in large part with all of the prints of both the sewer and water appurtenances. So the tables that or charts that you have in there are just a snapshot of that. Obviously, the full report has more detail in it, but just to bring out to the township kind of a breakdown in linear feet of water main and sewer main by pipe size, pipe age and materials. so that you can see that. There's also in the sanitary sewer side, a little bit of a differentiation between sanitary sewer that's gravity, meaning that the water just runs by gravity, or force mains, which are those that are coming out of pump stations and are under pressure. So that you can see that there's a little bit of differentiation there. We also developed a inventory of a number of pump stations, water main valves, water hydrants, and also manhole structures. And all that material will be presented to the township in a bound format or electronically, whichever you prefer. Did anybody have any questions in regard to the contents of the asset inventory?
I noticed on the very first chart, there were no 2-inch lines.
No, 2-inch lines are not allowed as a main. Now, obviously, as a service line going to a building,
Okay,
you could have a 2-inch service line, but that is not an acceptable main. And actually, AWWA standards and 10 state standards are pushing to get away from any 4-inch mains as well, in order to provide adequate fire flow for ISO ratings, et cetera.
gotcha. All right.
Of which we are impacted right now at the lower status of 4-inch main in a couple of our larger residential development areas, that being the Princeton Sunset Partridge area is all on 4-inch. And I believe maybe even off of golf course into
Yeah.
Par Eagle.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, and some of those things would also be brought out in your water reliability study. That was last done several years ago by C2AE. And so generally speaking, the water reliability study specifically addresses fire flows and would have had recommendations in regard to incorporating replacement of those 4-inch lines with 6-inch lines in your capital plan for your water system.
Trustee Warner, yeah.
Thank you. Just in terms of the, what do you call it, the water main material type, is it the PVC that we've had the most trouble with? Is that what I recall?
The problems that we've been having are not in relationship to the material of the mains, but to the service lines going to each individual building. And that material is a blue polyethylene material that has become more friable or delicate over age and is starting to fail on a pretty regular basis.
So but these are still our lines, so correct?
Well, the township owns the service lines between the water main and the shut off or curb stop. And so on the other side of the curb stop is, going to the residences, the property owners. We've seen that the majority of the failures have actually been close to the main because of the configuration when those were installed. And so there's a lot of tension on that plastic line right there. And that's why it is failing.
Is there any reason for us to look downstream with a concern on figure 2 with the asbestos cement?
The asbestos concrete pipes, that was a pretty typical methodology in the 70s. It was supposed to provide tensile strength, but be lighter than a standard concrete pipe. Those are fine as long as they are intact. It's not an environmental hazard or a concern in regard to drinking water quality. It's only if those pipes have to be removed and saw cut, et cetera, then it becomes an issue as far as the material.
Yes, Laura.
I'm just curious through this whole packet. Did this exercise, show that we should have more concerns in other some places over other places? Did you kind of know this information already, or did this kind of bring up some?
Yeah, all this information was basically known information. It had not been compiled. One of the things that will be presented to the township, aside from these kinds of graphs, is actually maps that show a map by size, a map by age, a map by material. And so those we can then correlate to any future problems that we have. For example, a lot of municipalities are going toward using a GIS system and actually recording any water main breaks or problems like that. And then if you see them overlaid on a map that shows potentially like the pipe age or material, you could have a good idea of what that underlying pipe condition is and whether you need to take steps to incorporate, say, replacing that in a future capital project or something like that.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Pope.
I just wanted to add to what Kath mentioned, and that is, this is just a great start of compiling information. We utilize GIS almost exclusively with communities to get a holistic view of your assets. Okay, so when you're looking at your road projects, you don't want to reconstruct a road and then next year find out that you had a 4-inch line underneath the road and that it would have increased your ISO rating if you replaced that line when you did the road. So these are just asset management planning tools that we utilize with a lot of our communities, and we can take a look at that holistic approach. The other real large impact for communities has been lead and copper service, asset inventories, and the DSMI inventories for communities. So we can take and graphically show where problems may be, and it could be for materials in the ground or materials in homes, that type of thing. So it's a really impressive tool.
Trustee Pope.
I think this is awesome because it really gives us a picture of what we have, where we're going, and what needs to be done. Another question, just real quick. I did some round numbers, roughly 53 miles of mains. That's all we have in the township, or did I do my math?
No, that's probably about right. I didn't do the totals, or I have them in the Excel sheet that these come from, shows the total, but we always think of it in linear feet.
Right.
Obviously can convert it into miles, but you know, if you think about the area of the township that is served by water and sewer as opposed to the total area of the township, you know, not 100% of the township is served, although quite a large proportion of the population is. So I think when last we looked at the number of service leads and the number of residents on average per household versus the total township population, there was something like 2/3 of the population that is served by water and or sewer, but not necessarily the geographic area of the township is not fully served by water and sewer.
Are there any other questions
I
in
appreciate,
regards to the asset inventory charts that were presented?
I appreciate this as a great documented tool that allows us to update it as we need to. But more importantly, we get to have something taken off of our audit.
Winning. Winning. It's only been on there for 5 years. So coming into an even number, we're hoping to be down one finding.
That's right.
Yes.
So, and as Brian was saying, and you know, this is a good beginning. This is the beginning of a platform to go forward and start looking at not just this information, which is just like an inventory, but now to start looking at condition and then start using that as a planning tool also going forward and developing a full asset management plan based on this information, more information that would be gathered. And that kind of leads us into our next part of the agenda.
Well, and I think actually I'll just, for giggles, I'll actually entertain a motion to receive and file the asset inventory charts as presented.
I'll make that motion.
A motion on the table to receive and file. Is there support?
I'll support it.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving and filing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. New business item 6 has been received and filed. Ms. Nguyen.
So the pump station condition assessment draft. So this was another project that the township started earlier last year. And we had a lot of field time involved in this. You know, this is the next step in what the asset management planning looks like. First, you know what you have. Now you have to determine what condition it's in. And so you can see that there was a lot of documentation done in regard to the stations. It's kind of nice, I'm sure, as a board to kind of get some pictures of what it is that you own that is either above or under the ground. And so that, you know, you can see an overall rating for each of these stations. This is partial in regard to this product, this work product. The next step, which is under development now and hopefully will be done later this month, is the associated capital improvement plan for the lift stations themselves. So basically that has been kind of held up. As you can understand, a lot of contractors and vendors are rather loath to give us any kind of information that would, even for budget purposes, give us prices. But the round numbers that I discussed with our engineering team to incorporate all the improvements or replacements that would be needed at the lift stations is approximately $3 million, of which $1 million approximately is related to the main pump station, the Michigan's pump station. So that information will be coming out later this month, hopefully. Something that the board then can look at and utilize as far as capital planning and looking forward, into your water and sewer budgets.
Are there any questions of Ms. Nguyen in regards to the pump station condition assessment draft?
The other thing that I would like to bring up, and maybe Brian can speak to this too, is, looking at that, and I'm sure many of you are aware that the federal government has put together a lot of infrastructure grant money that's going to be released. The thought is that that grant money is going to start hitting in the next federal fiscal year, which would be October of this year. Some of those funds are going to be disseminated through the state, more likely as state revolving fund, products. And so looking at the month of January as being the time to have an intent to file. And so that doesn't commit the township to anything, but it would, is there a couple simple documents that would need to be submitted to the state stating that you have an intent to file potentially for a grant application that would have to come in first. And then you would go through, if the board decides to proceed at that time, go forward with the whole grant application process. And then, hopefully be in the product, the queue to get funding potentially as early as this coming fall. We don't know what that's going to look like, how they're going to do that. In the past, they've done some of these grants specifically based on point ratings. Sometimes they're a lottery style. So we don't know what exactly that's going to look like. But the first step is to get that intent to file in. Otherwise, you're exempted from being able to do any of the other portion of the process. And I know that Brian has a lot more experience with that stuff.
Yeah, so this is a busy time of year for us. It used to be the winters we would be able to catch up on things, but now with the funding cycles, and especially with Eagle and the revolving funds. So as Kath mentioned, there's just a surplus of money federally and at the state level that continues to be talked about. Communities are kind of getting in line to ask for their share of not only grants, there's USDA programs, which is a federal program, and then the revolving fund programs is federal money, but issued through the revolving funds of the state. They used a little bit different terminology, but pretty much similar programs. USDA uses the term grant. Revolving fund uses the term principal forgiveness and green reserve. So the intent to apply period is it's the end of this month. And so with information about a capital plan and, it's a pretty easy step to take with Eagle would be an intent to apply. You have a meeting with the Eagle project manager. You talk about the project at hand, and they will give you a little bit of a blessing perhaps and say, we think this is a good project. And you would make an application that's due June, July, depending on sewer water. So that application is a little bit more in depth. There's some, it's called a preliminary project plan in the revolving fund world and a preliminary engineering report in the USDA world, but we're very familiar with those. And I would say that primarily in the North region, we've utilized USDA more often, rural development. And everything that we've heard thus far through the new funding that's coming, they haven't gotten any more dollars than they've ever been allocated in other years. So Michigan does a fantastic job using USDA dollars. If you're not familiar, it's again, those are federal dollars, and each state gets allocated an amount. And we go through, the state of Michigan goes through our allocated funds every year. And then in the fall, we actually go back and take funds from other states that didn't use theirs. So Michigan, I think, is about 53 million a year, and we've been about 100 million a year in USDA projects. So
So how, what do we, is it something that F&V does on behalf of the township? Is it something that,
It'd
The
be- it would be-
supervisor
it
would
be a
do,
con-
or-
It would be a contract for service through the engineering department, I would assume. But it is kind of on that same vein, with this information being provided, I think that it would be in our best interest. And I would entertain a motion, to move forward with filing the intent to file, and starting that process before the end of the
I
month.
make that motion. Support.
A motion and support on the table, to beginning the process of, the intent to file. Yes, Ms.
is there a
Ellison.
cost to this?
Was my question.
Yeah,
we wouldn't require cost for an intent to apply. We do that on behalf of the township.
okay.
So what is
Thank
the
you.
exact motion?
A motion to move forward with the intent to file, through Eagle in regards to, potential funding, whether it's utilization of USDA or any other funds. Trustee
But I
Ryan.
think the obvious question that I think you've already answered is you would then assist us in moving forward with the granting.
Yeah,
seeking
so.
grants.
So we're a full service firm, and so how this has worked with other communities is we would help with the intent to apply. We would represent the township at that meeting and talk about the capital plan and the size and scope of the project in general terms. If they say let's move forward, this is a good plan, they're going to request what's called a preliminary project plan. That's a significant document that'll take significant time to do and to meet their deadline of June or July. That'll require some environmental review. There's some things that are a little bit out of our hands, but we do it all the time. Once you get that project plan in, what they're doing is basically the revolving funds are taking projects from the state, and so they're holding a lot of these meetings. We've actually already had some of these intent to apply meetings. And then they're gonna score them, and they're gonna start funding projects, and we'll know in the fall period whether or not your project would be funded. If it's not funded in the 2023 year, you're still on the list, and it may be funded later. So let's walk it forward a little bit further. Let's say you do get the funding, then what we would provide would be full service engineering services to design, permit, bid, and construct the project. So we're here with you the whole time, providing services that we do every day.
I was gonna make some smart aleck comment, I guess, but it was, instead of just building back better, can we get funding to build back excellently,
So let's take this a little bit further downstream. The intent to file is essentially a gift to the township. And now we move forward to the more comprehensive application. That is a flat fee, that's an hourly thing. How is that billed to us? And then furthermore, if we are successful in getting the grant, if you are successful in getting the grant, is that fee recoverable through that grant? Or is that an expense to the township?
Good question. First of all, yes, the intent to apply would be, we'll just, that'll be provided by F&V and good faith, right? The preliminary project plan, depending on the scope and scale of the project, could be anywhere around $30,000 for a project plan. That would be the full application to Eagle. I believe those dollars are recoverable by the revolving fund when you get funded by Eagle. I would like to double check that, but I believe that that's the case. I don't know for certain. I know on the USDA side it is. And like I said, we've done more USDA projects, but what we're being told by these agencies and the USDA, Eagle themselves, is that most of the dollars are going through the revolving funds. So when you hear on the news at night that all of these dollars are backed up at the federal government and they're coming to communities, they need to find a way to get those dollars to communities, and they utilize existing programs. So that's the revolving fund or USDA. MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, is another avenue. They also do projects. So we're pretty good at understanding what programs are available and take a look for each community at which one would best suit you in terms of the terms of a project. And we can get into a lot of those details, but they are different depending on which agency you go through.
So am I hearing you say that if you went through Eagle or MEDC or wherever, that is one application submitted to 5 different places, or is that 5 applications submitted?
They'd be separate applications.
All right. Each of which would have a fee associated with it.
Not the same fee, but yes. So to get into a little bit of the detail, again, USDA calls it a preliminary engineering report. Eagle calls it a preliminary project plan. They essentially have the same information. And because of the Eagle and USDA trying to work together, they are accepting each other's basic document as an application.
All right.
The difference is that USDA doesn't have a window to apply. You can apply to USDA today, tomorrow, any day in the year, and you just go in the queue. Eagle has a period of time every January. You need to at least file that intent so that they know this fiscal year, we're looking at 500 billion in project call from our communities. So that's really what this first step is, just so the state can understand what is the need from all the communities.
All right, so I would like to have clarification as to whether or not those costs to establish or to prepare those grants are recoverable. Otherwise, we would have to establish where that money
Yeah.
comes from.
Well, and I think to add and the kind of meet in the middle here is a tip of the hat just to put our foot in the doorway with the intent to file. I think what will happen following that would actually be an overlay with Miss Wynn or any of the individuals from F&V to look at our capital improvement plan and score our own projects internally and make that determination of how best to move. Yeah.
What do you want? One fire hydrant or?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily I wasn't too concerned about the initial, I was just, the overall, many grants don't allow you to put those fees into those. So I just wasn't sure.
Mark was over my shoulder. Mark Barachian. Another project that I'm working on right now is actually a membrane replacement project at another wastewater plant. That is a CWSRF project. We were actually able to recover over $2 million worth of prepayments that we made to a emergency membrane replacement that was separate of the original project, because we went to the SWRF and got it approved. Essentially, whatever you put in the project, if it gets approved, that's what gets reimbursed. You can't come to them with stuff that wouldn't be qualified, but as long as it's part of the project, overall, that's the way I understand it. That's what we're saying. And it does have to do with a lot of communication with Eagle, getting the approval through that. That's what it comes down to. Is if you get the approval, you get the agreement with them, can properly explain it, it will happen.
Perfect. See how easy?
Sorry. Just gotta get the right guy in front of you.
Hey, it's all about communication. Yeah, there you go.
It's the blue shirt.
Thanks, Mark.
Can I clarify the motion?
Yes, by all means.
I just want to clarify that the motion is to have F&V file the intent to file with Eagle regarding the lift stations. Or is
No,
it
it's
just?
separate. It's
Just
separate.
overall.
Okay, so it's
Just-
not just the lift
Right.
stations.
It's just the intent.
So we're
that
not
way.
doing anything with this conditional assessment
Right.
yet?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Just to file.
Yep.
To
So-
submit an intent to file with Eagle.
Yep, just put our foot in the door. That way we have time internally to look at our CIP.
Any funding place.
So that intent to file will include a very brief scope and cost estimate. So we will have to have discussion with the township about what we want, how much of this we want to do, just the lift stations, do we want to do something more than that? So we'll have some discussion on what is included in the application, the intent to apply.
Most definitely. Are there any other questions from the family of F and B that is currently helping us? No, so we have a motion, and if there's any other discussion,
There's no money involved.
there's no money at this point in time. So all those, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor of moving forward with the intent to file, signify by saying aye. Opposed, the same. Moving forward with the intent to file, and we'll
Great.
open up those lines of communication.
Sounds like we need to get our our CIP done.
Yeah. Wanted it yesterday. Isn't that the proper response? Yes, trustee Polly.
Can I say something to F&B? Thank you for the services you are bringing and providing to our township.
Yes, thank you for all the work. Appreciate it.
And I guess at this point with the draft, there's no need to receive and file. It's in the drafts. Yeah. So we'll move forward to the department reports. We do have assessing. I think what we're doing moving forward is if there's any questions site specific to a department, this is the opportunity to address. Kevin is actually out on a field visit, but we actually have something in. So if there's something in the building department that we can fine tune, I know Laura, you had presented a breakout that shows a little bit different setup for cost comparison. I think that's
Right.
a good way, and I think we can probably have Lynn extrapolate that moving forward.
And we'd add a column for showing the difference between the 2 years.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then she can work with that
Yep.
and print it right out.
So are there any questions
happened.
for any of the,
I mean,
the
yes,
de-
May.
Yeah.
the department heads or chairs
I guess,
for their reports?
go ahead, Laura.
This is all building department.
I don't know what you're holding there.
Well,
It's, yeah.
It should be 4 pages was the building department.
well, then there's
You mean,
one
yeah.
one for reports, all the different. ones.
This
Assessing.
is assessing.
Yeah,
Oh, that's assessing?
This is
Yeah.
assessing.
Okay, this is building.
Yes.
Good. I think it's great that we're starting to see these kind of
Yeah.
things.
And I
coming
guess
forward.
yes, Michelle.
with assessing, I guess I would like to,
Would you please stand at the podium? That
this
way
is a
we-
lot to go through.
Yeah.
So maybe we could get some summary reports, Chris, and we can work on what we're
Okay,
kind of looking for.
what I submitted was the inspection report. Those are the properties we visited in the 2021 year. There are approximately 625 properties that we visited. And approximately 411 of those were complete reappraisals. The rest were building permits, rechecks from the previous year, and over requested visits. So that's what that one is. The other one is the totals and stats report that, I generate from my BSNA module. And that gives you current up to date.
What other
I only have the one.
This one?
I was not given that.
Should have.
No, it's not a package.
Anything.
I know it's not my report. This is the only thing I saw, so nobody has that.
So.
Okay, anyway.
Segue.
I'll follow up for you. On here is, as we enter our stuff in for the 2022 year, it continually adds what we're adding. And it compares it from last year to this year.
Perfect.
And right now, for assessed value, we're looking at an increase of roughly around 31,200,000 in value. In taxable value, you're looking at roughly 19,200,000. And we still have more of our stuff that we have to enter in. So you're probably looking at a taxable value increase of 20 million for the 2022 year. Of course, probably you'll have to deduct about $1 million of that because you have to take into consideration poverty exemptions and disabled veterans exemptions. And those typically equal about $1 million off that value.
And so we're coming into 2022, I think, with the combined total thus far, is we're looking at 375 million. And so-
377,251,000. So 1 mil, we'll look at, $377,000 in revenue for the township.
So I guess my statement for the board, if there's clarification or any way that any department can streamline reports moving forward, please let me know or let the department head know what you may or may not want to see in a report, so that way we can have kind of a finished product moving forward.
And, the board of review, the state mandates that board review take training, and it'll be this year. So I think we set it up for February. That's done every 2 years, and that has to be attached to the assessment role.
Yep.
So, and whoever's working in my office, that either clerical or whatever, who answers the phone will also have to take a class, and that would also have to be, and that's the changes from the assessing reform that they did. So that's what you have to look forward to.
Yeah. So we'll have that funding request on our upcoming agenda for the board review training through MTNA, which is actually hosted here in town. So that's a nice aspect. I think it's always been at the Ramada, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, I think, well, yeah.
Yes, Laura.
I just have one question. So you had said you did approximately 625 reappraisals and 411 of those were complete. But out of what is the total number?
625
Okay.
properties we visited.
No. I
But
mean,
411 of those were complete.
no. I meant the total number. How many, what's the total number that we have?
Improved properties, residential properties.
Just that you guys would go out and do a site visit at? Is it over 6,000 or 5,000 or?
There's 50 total residential improved properties is 51, a little over 5,100.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Wasn't
Are
asking.
there any other questions for Chris while we have him? Otherwise, like I had mentioned, if there's any way that we can improve upon department reports, please let myself or the department head know. That way we can provide a streamlined version moving forward.
Just because we don't understand it or whatever, doesn't mean it wasn't a good report.
Well, it's okay. Cash opened his eyes to assessing last week, so sometimes it takes a few years to wrap your mind around things.
I had some
we-
other questions on the report. Are you going to do each report individually or just, are you? asking
No, I
generally
think for
questions?
time, I think if there's something that would like to be pulled for a point of clarification, that would be the best way to be served. Yes, trustee Reiner.
From the clerk's report, the only thing I'd circled was the FOIA requests that were completed. Are you able to do those internally in-house, or do you have to have legal help with those?
Normally I can do them in-house. Sometimes we get big ones that I will call Tim and have some help with it.
Some have been going to every clerk, every municipality in the state, and those are the ones more likely where I'm listening to the chatter with the municipal attorney's blog, and we put our heads together and see what everybody else in the state's doing.
Well, and there was one back a year or two ago where I, as a citizen at that time, took exception to, and that was asking for something about how people voted or something, and
Yeah,
I
a
don't
lot
even
of
know how you know that,
post-election things.
yeah. The other one is on the supervisor's report that I had a question on, and that was the US 23 golf course road light. Is there anything, is that still on track?
Yes.
I know they've been doing a lot of work in our corner.
They've already, I think they've already reconfigured the poles, the electrical and all underground utilities thus far. So coming into the construction season this late spring,
It looks like Alpena Power's ready.
they've
they're
already,
working there.
everything is pretty much ready for implementation at this point.
That's great.
So then once we finalize that one, then I'll light the fire to acknowledge the concerns at Hamilton Road in 23 North. And then maybe even tie in better broadband for residents that find themselves east on Hamilton. You're welcome, trustee Kroll. You're welcome. Yes, Laura.
Chris, could you just send that other report that you modeled for us to all of us? Could you just scan and send it when you get time?
Okay.
We'll-
Yeah.
Michelle.
scan that?
Yeah, we'll send it. Thank you.
Beautiful delegation. I love it. Are there any other questions to?
I have an
department? Yes.
F&B question.
Okay, yes, by all means.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm looking at November and December expenses and don't see anything for the digs. Are we still having a issue getting people to invoice?
Yeah, we definitely are having a delay in invoices from Bedrock Contracting. We've contacted them, we've told them, numerous times that we need to get caught up on invoicing because we aren't able to get a realistic viewpoint of where we're at in regard to the maintenance allowance.
Yeah, so that 85,000 is an exaggerated amount probably because we have had digs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions since I'm standing up here? I just wanted to call your attention to the work order service call table. Just basically, that's a nice little annual look at the number of work orders and activities that are being done by the staff in regard to the, to township activities. Do note that the Mystic system went through a significant change in December, and we found out that Mr. Skibby is the administrator of that system for the township, and so he had to help us wrangle through that change out. Mystic did not do a very good job launching that and did not communicate it very well. We've had it in
Gross
multiple-
misunderstatement.
Yeah, I'm trying to be kind, but yeah, so that one is definitely estimated. I believe everything has kind of been hammered out now, but thank you to Mr. Skibby for his assistance and
Do you have enough flags? Those little
resolved.
flags?
And also to the front office, the treasurer's department, because they were getting all the Mystic emails and we weren't able to access the system. So they were forwarding them all to us via email so we could actually go out and put little blue and green flags in the ground. So
Oh, he doesn't do that?
I know
he could.
how to put
I
a flag in
suppose.
the ground, trustee Steiner.
If we have any questions about
yeah.
it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nguyen. Is there any other questions for any of the department reports before?
I
Yes.
guess I have a question for the chief as far as the millage language and it's just securing language and information and promoting.
Yeah, that was just a vision and outlook for what I'm looking to do for the next year. Working with the fire committee, we're trying to select the proper millage, talking points, language we're going to have on the ballot. I'm sure that'll be reviewed with the township's attorney and different things like that. But
So when would this, would this be in the August?
We have to have it in by May, I think.
May 15th, I believe is
Is
the hard
May 15th is the
stop. And a
deadline.
hard copy has
So
to be hand
that'll-
delivered to the county clerk, I do believe.
Okay, and it would be, is it the August election?
Right. Yeah, and the fire committee's been working on this, trying to get some ideas, what we're gonna do here. What's gonna be a real number, to ask the public to support. But we've got to come up with all those talking points and projections, and I'm sure everybody's kind of had a little bit of hand in that preparation so far, just trying to get real numbers and realistic, and we need to plan for 20 years down the road,
And I would just like to comment too, I know I did send an email to everyone, but the green address signs, and you're fully aware, but we are completely out. So when we have had several residents stop in and want a green emergency address sign. And we have been taking down their name and their address number and phone number. And when we get a chance to go through the stack we have that Cash had tried to get to people, and so have we in my office as well. But there,
For those.
originally it was a grant from the county years ago. And I believe they distributed them out to the various township fire departments. But I just feel like they're very important for people to have, and especially with the county now issuing new address numbers to people because they're
Right.
going through that whole process right
I-
now.
I'll touch on that real quick. I've reached out and corresponded to the new 911 director, Kimberly, Kim.
Milky.
Thank you. I was stuck there with the last name. I knew it was Kim, but I have heard that they're doing a readdressing. So I asked if there's any way that we can get in on that, with any signs that might be available. It's my full intent that we're getting some more staff coming on, that we will take that program back from the fire department, get it out of the treasurer's office to relieve you guys of that. And not only that, it does two different things. It gives great area development to my folks that are going to be out here, especially we've got new people from not in the area. If they're going out to put an address sign up, that's the place they're going to remember. So you get that sequence of road numbers in your head, and that'll help that process down the road.
And there's a lot of work that will go into this just because of the numbers we have. A lot of the places, Cash had attempted, we sent letters, they already have a sign.
Right.
So we're gonna try to work on a master list and see if there's someone else in another township or the city that has that address and they don't have a sign, just to try to find those a home. But.
Right. So yeah, I'm
so
just
it's
in
a
the process
coordinated
of
effort.
with the 911 director to find out. I mean, she's new to the job, so
Yep.
I'm gonna see what they have to offer, what we might be able to get for signs, posts, whatever, to put these things in and get on that project.
Thank you very much for the clarification, Chief. Trustee Polly.
And just one thing on the millage, this is from Attorney Golden, January 24th, 2018. That's on the millage dates. The proposal on the August primary ballot must get a certified copy of the resolution to the county clerk's hands by May 15th. That date may be a little fluctuation. And if we pick the August election, the board should adopt the resolution during its April meeting. So time is getting short of those things, still pretty good.
Yeah, it requires a resolution, so it can be just a meeting before that deadline.
Yeah, the fire committee is definitely scrambling right now, trying to get things together so we can get the proper language out there and the right information to the folks to let them know what's needed.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much, Chief. At this point in time, I would entertain a motion to leave open session and go into closed session per attorney-client privilege pending tax tribunal litigation discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Supervisor Skibby.
Yes, we are now officially in closed session for all.
Catch that door on my way out.
Yes, sir. Yes. We're now back into open session. We are now back into open session. At this point in time, I would also entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing a confidential written legal opinion from the township attorney and confidential settlement negotiations with the township attorney and the pending litigation involving the city of Alpena water and sewer rates.
Support.
We have a motion and support to go into closed session. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Would you
What time
please,
is
it is now 12:54. Closed session. Really back in.
Okay, so what do we have?
Okay. We're officially in open session at this point in time of the agenda. This is the second opportunity for public comment. If there's any public comment online, please use the raised hand emoji and or text so that we can address you accordingly. There are no individuals of members of the public present. Again, this is the last opportunity for the second opportunity of public comment. If there's any online comment, please raise your hand or text so that we can address you appropriately. Hearing and seeing none, is there any further discussion for the good of the board? Seeing none?
I thought you were gonna talk about the budget.
No,
Oh, yes. So you have before you the proposed budget. I'm going to be sending out a doodle poll of 3 primary dates to start the process. They will be during daytime hours. So I will get that out as soon as possible and reply. If I don't have a reply by the end of the week, we're moving forward with or without you.
Oh, in terms of dates.
So please
Cash.
reply.
Cash.
I'm looking in a direction that's.
I got him.
So anyways, you should all have it. I did it in Excel, so it's a larger format. Don't expect that moving forward. Moving to that end, please reply to that email as soon as you see it. Otherwise, I'll entertain a
I'll
motion
make a
to
motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
We have a motion on the table to adjourn. Support. We have support. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Meeting adjourned at 2:25.